All right, you know the drill. Top 10 death metal albums of all time in order. And once again, like with my black metal ranking, this is 100% objective. All right, I am very, very smart. I have an IQ north of 100. Okay, so if you disagree with this list, it says a lot more about yourself than it does about me. And it also says that you're probably 12 and you like Tomb Mold and Blood Incantation and all those other crappy bands. And if you do like those crappy bands, then you can watch my list and you can fix your taste, because this is 100% poser free for the most part. Number 10, from the UK, in it, 2005, Bolt Thrower, Those Once Loyal. The 8th and final album from Bolt Thrower, and it's got the typical Bolt Thrower sound, heavy ass, groovy ass riffs, mid-tempo death metal. And you know, some people critique Bolt Thrower for kind of basically having the same sound, the same formula, I guess you could say, for every single album. But I don't know, in my opinion, if you have a unique sound, I don't really think there's anything wrong with changing the formula. And yeah, the first 6 tracks of this album are just unreal. I mean, you would have thought this is like a greatest hits compilation. This album has the best production of any of the Bolt Thrower albums, in my opinion. I think it's also got the most melody. And not melody in an explicit sense where, you know, you have the rhythm guitar and then you have the lead guitar playing something over top. It's kind of more, I guess you would call an implicit melody, just in the riffs, in the vocal deliveries, even in Joe Bench's bass lines. The songs just have a bit more melody. I guess they're just a bit more catchier overall. Number 9, coming from the Netherlands, Pestilence. Consuming Impulse from 1989. And one of the things that I like to highlight immediately about Pestilence is that a lot of death metal bands, you know, they'll come at horror from a gore angle, like Cannibal Corpse, you know, or Obituary, something like that. Other bands might approach the satanic or occult angle, you know, Morbid Angel, Deicide, whatever. But I like that Pestilence kind of goes with the, I don't really know what to call it. I call it the heebie-jeebie kind of horror. I mean, you have the ants crawling all over this guy. I wouldn't want that to happen to me. You got songs like Dehydrated, which is about getting dehydrated in the desert, chronic infection. You know, they kind of take a different, somewhat unique approach to horror and horror themes in death metal music. Now, this was a transitional album for the band. No offense to Caitlyn Jenner. Where Pestilence went from a thrash band on their debut record, Malice Maleficus or something like that, to a death metal band with their sophomore superlative that I'm holding right here. You know, the production is a little rough. It sounds like the microphone and the vocalist are not in the same room. But I mean, when you got riffs like these, who fucking cares? The opening track's Dehydrated, in the Process of Suffocation Rule. Middle of the album's got Out of the Body and my personal favorite song on the album, Chronic Infection. And you also have a deep cut diamond on track number 8 with Deify Thy Master. Number 8, from the good old USA. You might want to hide your screen for this album artwork, but 2004's Cannibal Corpse, The Wretched Spawn. Isn't that a work of art? Cannibal Corpse, for me, is one of those bands where my favorite songs by them tend to be kind of spread out across the whole discography. But I would say this is the album that has the most amount of songs that I like. This album features the notoriously difficult song to play, Frantic Disembowelment, written by famous fire safety enthusiast and skull collector Pat O'Brien. On Metal Archives, this album is kind of ranked middle of the pack for Cannibal Corpse's discography. But I don't know, just in my opinion, it is the most consistent album throughout one of the most consistent bands' discographies, not just in death metal, but just metal at large. Severed Head Stoning, the title track, Bent Backwards and Broken. I don't know, this is just the album that speaks the most to me. And once again, probably because of this beautiful, moving cover. Number 7, once again from USA. Suffocation, 1991, Effigy of the Forgotten. Unreal levels of heaviness. Frank Mullen's vocals are inhumanly deep and guttural. Terrence Hobbs is a riff-writing genius. And Mike Smith might be generic in nomenclature, but absolutely not in his drumming ability. Technical, brutal, amazing death metal. I mean, Liege of Inveracity, Effigy of the Forgotten, Infecting the Crypts, Jesus Wept. They still play half of this fucking album in their set list today. Stone cold classic for a reason. Number 6, from Canada. Cryptopsy, on my shirt and the CD, 1996, None So Vile. This album is an absolutely must-have in the record collection of any death metal fan. I distinctly remember the first time I heard Cryptopsy. I think it was Slit Your Guts when I was 14. And I remember being very scared of what I was hearing. But I also kind of liked it. Kind of like after hours Bible study with my youth pastor. And in contrast to those after hours studies with my youth pastor, I actually came to like this more as I got older. And it's super fast, super heavy, but it's still super memorable. I would say a lot of fast albums, they kind of just tend to bleed together. But with this song, it's just every song is memorable. Every single song is distinct. The drummer, Flo Mornier, whatever, is a beast. Absolutely reset the expectations of what is possible and what is to be expected of death metal drummers. Lord Worm, the vocalist, is an absolute beast. Guy has a volcano for a voice. Very unique sound. Guy also is fucking weird, has some really odd lyrics, but I'll let you discover that for yourself. Number 5, starting to get into the top half. Atheist, Unquestionable Presence. Also got it right there. And I have the t-shirt right here. So I've already done a whole video on Atheist, so I'm not going to go too deep into this album. But these guys are pioneers of technical and progressive death metal, and this album is fabulous from start to finish. I love the random, like, drum and bass rhythm section break parts. I love the uniqueness of Atheist sound, the heaviness of the riffs. I would say my favorite track is Your Life's Retribution, with the title track and Enthralled in Essence not too far behind. And obviously, rest in power to the bassist, Roger Patterson. Number 4, Morbid Angel, Formulas Fatal to the Flesh, 1998. Come on. Small-minded sheep argue whether Altars of Madness or Covenant is the best Morbid Angel. But real independent thinkers know it's really between Blessed Are the Sick and Formulas Fatal to the Flesh. And since I'm a sucker for prog, I lean towards Formulas Fatal to the Flesh. Now, some people won't even listen to this album because it doesn't feature Morbid Angel's original vocalist, David Vincent, which to me is a bit of a shame. And that's not necessarily because Steven Tucker is a better or equivalent vocalist. You know, I think Steven Tucker does a better job on Gateways to Annihilation than he does to this one. But it's a shame that people don't listen to this album because the songs fucking rule. And my favorite song, absolutely on the album, is Nothing Is Not, which I did a drum cover of. And it's one of those songs that I think it's very clear that Gojira drew a lot of influence from, with the pick scrapes, the syncopated rhythms, stuff like that. So, I don't know, I think it's kind of cool when you can see how one earlier band clearly influenced another band that ends up becoming big later on. So, how about that? So Trey Azagoth, a guitar player for Morbid Angel and the main songwriter, uses a lot of these atmospheric guitar effects throughout the album. There's this 10-minute song called Invocation of the Continual One that's got all these different kinds of sections and stuff. But if you're not into the, progressive wankery and all that, you got songs like Prayer of Hatred, Nothing Is Not, Umalahari. Number 3, I did say there was going to be some poser crap in here, and this is my first offense. From Finland, Children of Bodom, 1999, Hatebreeder. I will absolutely accept the title of Hot Topic Metal Poser if liking this album makes me so. Because this album rules. And now, as is customary for Children of Bodom, you got killer melodies featured on tracks like Silent Night, Bodom Night, and Bed of Razors. But one of my favorite moments on the album happens in the title track, third track, Hate Breeder, where in the final minute of the song, the guitar player and the keyboard player are basically trading fours with each other. Now, if you don't know what trading fours is, it's basically one musician plays 4 bars of music, 4 bars of a solo, and then someone else does 4 bars and you go back and forth. Now, fun fact about me, I played in a high school jazz band. And one thing we would do is that we would trade fours. And I thought that was a lot of fun because I could maybe play a rhythm that the saxophone player can then do something, and then I can play off the saxophone player. And given the technical proficiency of a lot of metal musicians, I just wish that improvisational aspect, or like trading fours, was more of a staple of metal live performances. Because number one, if you're a band, that's the way you can switch it up. If you're playing the same songs on tour, I don't know, you're doing 30, 60, 90 shows a year, however many shows you're doing, you can switch it up. And if you're in the audience, you get something spontaneous, something that you can only get in the live show. So, yeah, I mean, overall, this album has some great melodies and stuff, but just wanted to highlight that moment because that's something I think metal should do and embrace more. Number 2, Death, Symbolic, 1995. Most people's number 1, and for good reason, but I'm not like the other girls. So for me, this album only comes into my number 2. Whole album 1 through 9, full of masterpieces, and another one of those albums that I got more and more into over time. I would say at first it was the title track, Zero Tolerance, and Crystal Mountain that initially got me hooked in, and it was Without Judgment, 1000 Eyes, and Misanthrope that kept me hooked. Gene Hogland, drummer on this album, absolute legend. Great example for aspiring drummers to look to when thinking about how to think outside the box with your fills and your grooves. And I would say this is the album where Chuck cemented his status as a legendary songwriter. Before we get to number 1, just want to give some honorable mentions. From Finland, 2000, I believe, Kalma, Swamp Lord. Obviously, I like Children of Bodom. I'm going to like this. Deicide, Legion, featuring little dainty tunes such as Saints by the Demon and Dead But Dreaming. Classic from 1992. Might catch some heat for this, but fuck all of you. The Faceless, 2012, Autotheism, baby. That Autotheism suite 1, 2, 3 is fucking epic. I can only put this on the honorable mentions, though, because Michael Keane, singer-songwriter, in my opinion, kind of has some cringe, Nietzsche, dick riding. And I'll be honest, I'm not an expert on Nietzsche, but if there's one thing I know about Nietzsche, his philosophy was all about becoming a man of historical consequence, embracing the will to power, transcending morality by becoming the overman, and like I said, becoming a man of historical consequence. It was definitely, if Nietzsche were to come back from the grave today, he would tell Michael Keane, yo, dude, stop the dick riding. That's not what my philosophy is all about. But anyway, a little bit of a philosophy tangent there, but I just gotta say it. Number 1, unequivocally, categorically, objectively the best death metal album of all time. From Sweden, 1999, Opeth, Still Life. I'm an Opeth fanboy, guilty as charged, but come on, this fucking album rules. The opening track, The More, absolute clinic in songwriting, 11 minutes of the beautiful intertwining forces of Morbid Angel and Jim Croce. Michael Ockerfeldt's ability to just blend, folksy acoustic guitars with super heavy death metal is just absolutely unmatched. I mean, what else can you say? I mean, Ockerfeldt's a genius. Just listen to it. Use your ears. This album has great song diversity with kinder, gentler affairs like Face of Melinda or Benighted. Then you have heavier songs like Serenity Painted Death and absolute heartstring tuggers like Moonlapse Vertigo. So yeah, that's the list. Bye.